GY Evan asks, hello, Mr. Lee. In your opinion, what is your stance regarding monarchism history and romanticism in Korea? Do you support, oppose, or no opinion? What is your stance regarding the division of Korea? Was it a mistake? All right, two great questions. Actually, great questions. I think monarchy is the best form of governance. I know that might be controversial, but a benevolent monarchy is the key, right? And so there's no perfect form of government. There's just best, there's better, or there's worse. And the worst, right? I think the worst is communist. I think that's the worst form of governance. I think democracy is the second worst, probably, like mass democracy and mass democratization. I think republics are pretty close to being pretty good, but I think, yeah, monarchy. Within a monarchy, you can have democratic systems, right? You can have, a parliament that is representative of the people. But I do believe that a benevolent monarchy is the best form of governance. And now there's a recent Korean drama that was called Perfect Crown. And in Korean, it was 21세기 대군 부인. Gosh, I'm so bad at going back between Korean and English. But that it's like, a literal translation is 21st century crown wife. So basically, she's a princess. She's the wife to the crown prince or, the prince in Korea. And in this drama, they have an alternate history where, so at the end of the Joseon dynasty, King Gojong, he declared that Korea is now the Korean Empire, right? 대한제국. And then in this drama, Japan never colonized Korea. So then that monarchy persisted after. And so that's the whole idea of the drama. And it was under a lot of controversy, which I might make a video about very soon. Because they messed up a bunch of historical stuff and they portrayed Korea, even to this day, in their monarchy as a vassal state of China, which is, obviously very unpopular in Korea. But yeah, so my view on monarch, I say all that because I think that anger that Koreans displayed from that drama actually is an indication that actually Koreans do have a pulse and probably a desire for sovereignty. And like a sort of form of monarchy, which is why the presidency is so important, right? Because effectually in our modern first world democracies, the president functions as a king. Now, he doesn't rule as a king, but he functions as the king in terms of he's the leader and he is the symbol of, the nation on the world stage, but also to the people. And so that's why the presidency is so important. But yeah, I think there's a pulse for like, hey, like actually we should be proud of our monarchy and our king and to be strong. And so I actually support probably some sort of like rediscovery or a bit of like a restoration of monarchical norms in Korea. And maybe it looks like a constitutional monarchy. Maybe it looks like, just like a monarch in a royal family with no power, like in Japan or in Britain. But I think one thing that Korea needs is a symbol of national unity to tether them to their Korean roots and their heritage. I think that's important. So but at the same time, it's like, but look at all the cruelty in Korea's past with the monarchs. Yeah, because they're bad monarchs. But we had good monarchs, and when we had good monarchs, Korea flourished. But then everyone's like, okay, but you're too incumbent on the monarchs. Yeah, but like we have oligarchs, and like say for example, me personally, like, is there anything I can truly do today that goes against the oligarchy of Korea or whether it's America? It's a really loaded topic, so I won't opine on it very further. Maybe I'll make a video about this, but it's just something to chew on. I think that when you think about even the best, in my opinion, the best president in South Korean history, Park Chung-hee, he essentially ruled like a king. And while, again, there's things that he did wrong, he ruled efficiently and well, and he brought Korea into the modern age. So I think there is room to talk about that. I think the pulse is not there, though. Like I think the sentiment, the temperament's there, but the pulse for the conversation is not there. So that's my stance. And then, what is your stance regarding the division of Korea? Was it a mistake? Of course, it was a mistake. I think it was inevitable the way that things panned out after World War II. I am glad that half of the Korean peninsula isn't communist. But at the same time, we shouldn't be a divided Korea. A divided Korea is a weaker Korea. A weaker Korea. Can you imagine if Korea was reunified right now with the vast natural resources and the minerals regarded to be in the trillions in North Korea, and then, just combined with all the technology that, we're all the same people. You have to understand that I'm actually half North Korean, and I don't say like, oh, I come from North Korea, but it's like no, like half of my family comes from North Korea. They fled during the Korean War because obviously, as Christians, communists weren't very fond of Christians back in the day, even today. But yeah, we're all the same people. I'm still Korean, and then North Koreans are still Korean. So can you imagine how much stronger we'd be? How much stronger Korea would be if they were unified? And so this actually has to be a tangible and a big priority. Like it has to be a tangible goal and a big priority among the Korean people and the Korean politicians, the Korean government. It has to prioritize. One of the biggest political goals has to be reunification. It has to be. I mentioned that I visited the National Assembly earlier this year, and most people don't know this. They actually have a separate chamber that is unused and has been unused for decades in the National Assembly in South Korean Seoul, because they planned for North Korea to use that once they reunified. But it's been 70 plus years. We haven't reunified yet. But yeah, it's like I don't think if we don't do it in this generation, I don't think it'll be achievable. I think it'll be very, very slim. But not only as a Korean, but I think as a Christian, because the Christian roots of Korea, when you think about the Pyongyang revival, started in North Korea. The spread of Christianity really started in North Korea. So there's Christian inheritance there. There's a spiritual inheritance in North Korea. Half my family comes from that land. So it's something that is near and dear to my heart, and I really do care, and I pray for the reunification of Korea. But yeah, the division of Korea was a mistake, yeah. And as much as possible, they should have found a way towards reunification or like coming together and staying one Korea. But that's the thing. It's like it wouldn't have been like that if Japan didn't colonize Korea. So there's this weird revisionist history happening in Korea right now, where a lot of Koreans are saying, hey, the Japanese colonial area wasn't even that bad. That's just bad history, of course. But one of the functions of and one of the results and the fruits of Japanese colonialism in Korea is that it was a divided Korea and it was a weaker Korea after the war. And then so because of that, China and America and allied forces had to come in and influence Korea, and then it just completely shaped Korea into what it is today. So that's my answer to that question. Very great question. I hope to opine on this further because we see the failures of mass democracy in our nation. Greek philosophers spoke about it in length in our past. So there's nothing new under the sun. But I think that when you think about the greatest leaders and the greatest figures in history, yeah, they're strong leaders. And in essence, they're strong monarchs. And so I think just having a government like that, and it also results in sustainable governance as well. But yeah, well, we will expand on that further in the coming days.